Gotta give a quick video on this. About 20 minutes ago, according to doctor's procedures, my mother's sedated on anesthesia and having surgery on her knee. And just give a little bit of my thoughts. This is important, at least to put it on videotape. But it does make me feel an enormous amount of guilt because I felt like I had to be that way because I had no choice in order to keep the ground and everything that was going on, because this is a horrible accident. Like, this wasn't just a car wreck, having your leg crushed, or however many ways that can't even happen. This is a forklift running over your leg. I mean, I don't know how. I mean, my mother's ankle, leg was shattered, and probably at least a dozen different places and bits and pieces, and probably still in the leg. And terrified my aunt. Both of my aunts worked there. One of my aunts, Maki, who had two daughters, Veronica and Lucero. I talked this about before, that she screamed so loud, that it and she rode in the ambulance the whole way there to the hospital. And much of everything that I think of, I understand it's the past, but it bothers me because I'm not really involved. It's not like she's I don't, it doesn't feel, ultimately, I know the outcome because I'm intelligent enough, thank God, to understand how predators will surround the fucking area about a situation like that when someone is getting lots of money and fame and you got an identical twin. People know that even if they behave good around you and do a lot of good things, they'll use their racial ethnicity because they know they always have a leverage and people will listen to you because they always did your whole life. Like if you have a Barbie-looking figure, or Donald Trump, Ken Cooper appearance, people will always know that you congruently listen to him, even over a white guy that has brown hair and brown eyes, or So, the way that I feel about it, it's very strenuous because, it is a form of, practice, and adjustments that they make, because I'm sure without a doubt, they're cornered my mother, and the fact that you have a transgender rape your son, and you have a son on the other side of the city, and all this other stuff that's going on, like, everyone was able to use that for themselves except for me, and I wasn't even looking to use it. Because you give some people enough money, just the way that they function, and so many horrible things that have happened to them. I don't think it's because my mother necessarily wanted bad things necessarily, even though I know that's been some of the fact. It's just that it almost kind of, she feels like that. I think sometimes it'll scoop you down to what maybe you can understand how she feels, because there's no one else, very few people that have gone through that type of strenuous shit. You can go through all the strenuous shit, all you want, but it's not the same. You have, being an immigrant and all that other stuff, and you got money and you're eating good, and your kids are just doing 10 times better than I am. What the fuck, and you just cry to people, but I know Julian because I remember Ken Cooper, who's the savior of my mother and his, all this other shit, this motherfucker and his wife, you know, um, it's it, it's um, it's aggravating because I know that the twins and they knew all about this. Like even Julian and Ken is good doing this, and he's looking over at Julian and he's looking over at Kenneth and signaling to them in front of him, and like who the sheriff is, and like so. Essentially, Julian was doing this to me. This is right after my dad died. I mean, I really believe he just, he really looks at Ken almost kind of like a father figure or like a role model. I really know he does, because if they're working in the same security job positions and he's doing something like that, that's why, I really can't say anything about that, other than the fact that you're just waiting to get more and you'll get more. There's nothing at the magnitude that you can put how frustrating and angry I am that they're using Michael Jackson as an accessible reward in exchange when it has ultimately very little value, and they want to add all the credibility value, like I'm the one that's known for, this is a magical spiritual or something. No, this is none of those things. What it is you're using something that horrifically happened and exchanging it and giving it to someone else and having put it on my tray to give it to someone else. And I, as lucky as I was to have something like that happen, they want to use it 35 years later to say, oh, look, you see, this isn't so bad anymore, and it's just going to awaken the fact that Michael resuscitated me and all this other shit, and he, it's just, you start exchanging this shit. Because I know it's going to add all this emotional value, to my mother toward Michael. You start falling asleep and you're like, oh my God, this is Hector, my son, who's going to die. Even though my mother hates me or I'm thrown out in the fucking streets, I'm still her son, and understanding not every mother loves her son, like the way some mothers do, or they just love him different, and the idea that, he has an immigrant wife and doesn't give a shit, the fact is the president had me raped, and here my mother's bringing this transgender along to now clean his shit up, because he's completely just racial washing me, I'm not trying to use his surgery in all situation, but when I think about my own personal life, you are using this against me for your own leverage and your own racial movement. Why should I go off and make millions of dollars and be a celebrity when you're just gonna sit at your fucking 8 to 9 fucking job for the rest of your life until you die? And I didn't want to be a part of this. My life expectancy isn't gonna be a whole lot, so it's very depressing. I was thinking about this, at night, and I could hear the guy, and they had these devices. They can tell when I'm thinking or getting angry or all this other shit, and I can hear the guy with the, on the other side of the wall and start saying no, and he starts saying all this shit because they know what's going on in my head. They know what's their conditioning. It's just the same way that I had this yin yang. They wouldn't, this motherfuckers, they had the crucifix inside the room, they're all attacking me before my mom's surgery. They want to make sure Jesus Christ is the one I'm only going to believe and do, and it's fuck you and yin yang Japanese shit. And this is what he does. Like, they wouldn't give me my package that had the necklace, right? Because it doesn't represent Christianity, and Jesus Christ and the believer of the Holy Cross and all this other shit. And it's very angry because, they won't, it's like saying, no, I told you who you worship. Remember, this one's about, this one's going on a sedation. I told you who to fucking worship. And they'll do this shit playing psychological training me. And when I go into the full darkness of the room, he brings me the package. He goes, yes, sir. And they basically, I told you who you worship. And they do this psychological shit to me. You say, I told you what God you're going to worship. I'm going to keep fucking doing it. We're the ones in the supremacists that are going to win. And, you can't probably help think that I show up to a funeral, show up to a cemetery beat up, covered in blood. That's not a good thing, because when she thinks about me, you just can't help it. She probably crosses her mind a little bit, to say, hopefully surgery goes great, and, as the President of the United States, so he could just work my mother like a fucking mule for his own labors and fucking luggage shit and just change it all up. My mother, just using me for political movement. Very frustrating and angry that somebody pulls some shit like this. I mean, it's non-stop of everything that it so works to get up against me. Julian didn't really want to do much either for my mother. He was seen pretty cold about it, but I had more better reasons than he did. Julian really didn't feel all that sympathetic about it. He really didn't. And the truth is that as much as desires that I have with women and or whatever, and they won't let me have a girlfriend, and I like pale blonde women, tall pale blonde women. At 38 years old, in reality, the truth is because they know that the female that most likely is going to be close to my age, or even in their 30s, has had their ass ripped open, vagina slammed and fucked in the mouth, nutted all over the fucking face, dick slapped, fucked in the ass, leftover ass, but just nice and clean and showered up. And just a different age person. And it's because males understand this, that I want you to have leftovers. I want you to have nothing that is, especially since they control my sperm. They confiscated my sperm, and they're conditioning me what colored baby I'm supposed to have. It goes to Susie. You need to have a Mexican, because the biggest thing and goal and trophy they're going to get is that they inseminated my sperm inside a fucking Mexican so that I could have a Patricia Gardina looking individual, because then you love the baby. That's a bullet that kills a person from any type. You can't present the child, and it's very frustrating to understand that that's the reality of it. Is this is how the selection of mates happen. And knowing how my mother is and how women are, they'll use that against my mother. Oh, look, you see, you got your ass ripped open and all fucked up, and all these men are worn out, but you're just a new person now. And it bolts the fucking doors of opportunity, and this is why they burnt it up and wasted it, because Barack Obama is saying, here, get you some nasty leftover shit, because that's all you were worth in your fucking life. I think it's important to think about and talk about because that's reality, what others think and what they want to apply for my life. The fact that somebody can fucking have my sperm and they confiscated it and fucking training me. This is the colored baby you're gonna have. This is, we tell you what's gonna happen because I get all this fucking money and knowing that I have, close to 15 vials of this shit, or this of my sperm, and then I can just get a whole bunch of girls in foreign countries pregnant, make millions of fucking dollars and support them and do all kinds of shit and just give out a bunch of babies and don't take care of them and just give them money. They don't want that to happen. Women are crazy. They'll know I'll get a bunch of them pregnant and is pissed off and is wanting things and doing things. They'll control that as well. So they know that they just start sending these people and say, okay, now train him to do this. Okay, now grab a bottle, hold water in it, and confiscate it. Make him think that it's his sperm. Okay, now get water. Okay, now walk over here, send a white guy, and then do this and do that. But I really can't say anything, though, about the fact that Julie knew about this whole fucking time. Whole fucking time, it doesn't change. 38 years old and only looking to get a fucking, female that's been fucked in, every fucking way, and then you say, oh, that's human life, because in pornos is a good example to show you what the selection of what males are always doing and after it since the beginning of time. If I'm infected with HIV, it only makes it more glorious to a fucking spick Mexican like myself. It's just the racial cause. Look how much money everything's in the psychology is it going to be able to brainwash you in. Very solitude of white supremacy. They'll use the white people to take care of my mother and all this other shit. I was with my mother when I used to take care of my father. After he swallowed a toothpick, having those surgery situations, I was the one that when my mother had staples in her calf muscles, I was the one that was healing her leg, put her on alcohol and putting, because you get like varicose veins. So my mother had that surgery and I'd take care of my mother, and I was really young too. I think I was about 6 years old. I was about 6 or 7 years old when she had that surgery. And that's an enhancement that isn't necessary. But the idea that, something like that is happening, Still can't believe Julian didn't say shit. It's too late now. What are you supposed to say to Julian? He's fucking playing me for a fucking fool. Got a twin brother and fucking it's a fun ride. I know exactly. It's because it's a source of power. It's a power trip. Even when I was with Michael, I would always say information of what it's a very power surrendering, because, even when you're around other, friends of mine, when I made mistakes and I knew it was going to sabotage me, I'd say it anyway. In a lot of cases, except when it had to do with like my dad or, some really awful shit, because it enhances a person to be able to better their life, better their existence with that information of knowledge. And it doesn't hold me to retain that type of power. You kind of give the power to someone else so that they can better themselves. And when my mother, I'll probably shoot this shit in my head again. They'll probably use this and it bothers me because I know that I went at 6 months for testicular cancer, and that means just laughing and jokes. I can't explain the humility in something like that, so so fucking disgusting. It's just the process, you know. Even when I told Kathy, I said my mother got ran over by a forklift. I don't think they knew at the time. And I was like, yeah, my mom was on. He said, dude, my mom's on drugs, dude. And his mom's like, oh, they're on drugs because that must be. Or she said something like she was kind of protective of my mother, but I kind of felt offended a little bit because I'm like, do you have any idea what, you know? She didn't understand, but I didn't say anything. I just, you know, I was like, yeah, but you know, you don't understand. But they didn't understand, but never asked questions or anything like that. What a disgrace to fucking do something like that to a male. And because they know what I want. They know that if they once you get happy, and then once you get a white blonde woman, and you know start having sex and going out to dinner and you're content, it's like here. And then that's what you only deserve, a leftover piece of ass after you got raped by a transgender. Now energetically give that to your next partner. It's hard to express because I just know how my mother feels about whenever I'm being treated like shit. She's been through so much shit herself, and here I am picking all the best peaches as a child off a peach tree. All the best ones. Put them in a basket. I had like 3 weeks. Man, like 3 weeks worth of peaches, and I would just eat them just like non-stop. That's all I would eat like 20 of them a day, 25 of them, 25 of them, just tons of them. Probably not 25, about 15 a day. Sit around and have baskets of strawberries and shit. I could eat just fruit, nothing. I didn't eat anything else. I didn't care about anything else. Fruit was good enough, and I wasn't allowed to pick any of them myself. And it was only to see which one of the ones were going to pick out which ones they wanted in life. Hopefully my mother can forgive me. Hopefully she feels good. She can forgive me. Of how I behaved, and see some light in that, and hopefully make the best of it. Quick recovery. Makes me feel guilty though, but what are you gonna do? 38 years old almost in 2 months. I'm the only street kid. One boy that she has. What happens? Barack Obama throws psychology. Thinks he gives a goddamn fuck. It's only for his political movement. He wants to play stupid along with George Bush. I just throw you that nasty, disgusting piece of ass and enough brainwash you and throw fame at you to say, oh shit. Now I'm gonna go give it to Classic Soul and give it to Richard Murphy. Oh, now you see who's the angels now. You see you see who's white. Oh, you see who's always right? You see who's always white. I don't know. You can imagine going to the operating table. I don't know what's going on, but sure feels like my mother's going to be retaliated against me, after she recovers and everything. She's going to get mad, because all this emotional investment's going to go to Classic Soul and the Murphy family because he resuscitated me. And he didn't do any of that. And nobody wants to believe me, so they just beat the shit out of me, making me understand. And nobody will ever believe me. They just want to say that I died had near NDE. No, I didn't have the NDE. I was conscious. Don't understand that I was so fucking like drunk beyond anything. Couldn't do anything. Just laying there. I was just like, I needed to conserve energy, and I was like, I'm fine. And that's why I had to say something when he's pulling down my pants. But what are you gonna do? You get $14,000, no family, and live in an apartment, and still have to spend money on a car, buy a new car, insurance, rent was covered only by my job, covered all rent bills and everything, left me with $100 extra a month, pretty much, after food and everything, to go out, maybe do something, movies and all such of things, gas, with those $14,000, what are you gonna do? You can't play loud music at an apartment. You don't have job security. You don't ever, you can't play loud. The cops come to my house. Apartment knocking on the door saying turn down the music. I really wanted to go to school. Won't even let me. Probably that's why they don't want me to work, because Ginger went to become a nurse in school, and they exchanged that to say, oh, okay, well, you see, this is the one that decides to leave, and you don't. You have to become a DJ, and you have to do the entertainment shit. I can't go to school and live a normal life again and just say, I don't want to be a part of this shit anymore. I'd like to be able to do certain things. There's more to me than just music. There's more to me than just entertainment. Having dreams of moving to a different country. I remember telling Datron when we had the conversation, and he was telling me his ambitions and dreams and wanting to move to Taiwan, and he did. And I was telling him my ambitions and wanting to move to a different place, London, Spain, France, Germany, let him know, hey, my family comes from military, and how his emotions were. I think he also, I don't remember if he told me his family, he had members of the family who were military too, but he seems like he does. Gotta go to work here soon.